Prajishna from Department of Neonatology. Today I will be presenting a case series on neonatal hyperbilirubinemia with acute bilirubin encephalopathy. My colleague Dr. Rasi from Radiology Department will be assisting me in discussing MRI. So I will be discussing case profiles of 3 cases and brief discussion on the topic. So we have 3 outbound babies, all from remote hilly regions, admitted in our unit over last 3 months. So case 1, this baby was admitted to us at our unit at 96 hours of life, 39 plus 2 weeks gestational age female girl baby with birth weight of 3000 gram and admission weight of 2620 gram with cumulative weight loss of 12.6%, which is more than expected weight loss. And all 3 babies were delivered by normal vaginal delivery with all mothers having one previous baby, one living issue at least. So none of the elder siblings had neonatal hyperbilirubinemia requiring management. And first, in case 1, mother's blood group was B negative and baby's blood group was B positive. There was RH incompatibility and IAT status was not known, and mother has received anti-D in the previous pregnancy. Baby was on exclusive breastfeeding before admission, and in the case 2, this baby was admitted at day 6 of life, girl baby admitted at 40 weeks gestational age with birth weight of 2800 grams. Admission weight of 2638 grams with cumulative weight loss of 5.8%, which is expected. And this baby was born to 3rd degree consanguineous parents. Blood group of both mother and baby was A positive, and IAT status was not known in this. This baby also was on exclusive breastfeeding before admission. So in case 3, this baby was admitted to us at 22 day of life, girl baby at 36, born at 36 weeks gestation with birth weight of 2750 gram. Baby has gained weight adequately and reached 3000 gram at admission and at day 22 of life, which is adequate. So, and this mother's blood group was O positive and with baby's blood group of A positive. There was OA incompatibility, but and there was no history of jaundice in previous sibling. This baby also was on direct breastfeeding before admission. So, coming to examination of cases. So, all 3 cases, all 3 were sick at admission, but hemodynamically stable and vitals were stable at admission. All 3 were clinically icteric till palms and soles deeply, and all were encephalopathic and having shrill cry at admission. There was retrocolis and opistotonic posturing was there in case 1 and case 2. And tone increased in all 3 cases and suck was poor in all 3 cases. There was hepatosplenomegaly in case 1 and it was not there in case 2 and case 3. Embine score, which is objective assessment of acute bilirubin encephalopathy, which also has prognostic importance, which I will be discussing later. So any score less than more than or equal to 7 confers to severe bilirubin induced neurological dysfunction. So case 1 and case 2 had severe and case 3 had moderate. So bilirubin albumin ratio, it indicates bilirubin unbound to albumin and which can cross the blood brain barrier and reach central nervous system and damage brain. So this is significantly higher in all 3 cases, and it is corresponding to level of unconjugated bilirubin level. So other systems were within normal limits in case 1, and case 2 had pustules in diaper area. So we had suspected sepsis in this case, and case 3 had abdominal distension at admission with vomiting. So we had suspected either intestinal obstruction or sepsis in this case. And severity of neonatal hyperbilirubinemia. In case 1, we had outside values available. So it was 30.98 and 32.28 total bilirubin level outside. So even with phototherapy, it was not reducing. So they have referred to us with these bilirubin levels. At admission to AIIMS, bilirubin level was 39.21. So this baby was started on phototherapy. In case 2, they have checked, and outside they have checked bilirubin level. It was 33.2 and referred to us. At admission, bilirubin level was 36. In case 3, although we don't have any bilirubin levels available, it was at admission 22.39 and we have started phototherapy in this case immediately. So coming to course of individual cases, this was the course of case 1. This was at admission of case 1. As you can see, this baby was deeply icteric till palms and soles, and baby was having stereotypic movements, and baby was having retrocolis and opisthostonous posturing. So bind score of this case was 7 at admission. So we have started immediately the baby on phototherapy. This was the trend of bilirubin levels, and we have planned DVET, and we have given DVET immediately after starting phototherapy, and bilirubin level has reduced to 19.25 after DVET. Even though this level has, even though with intensive phototherapy this level has maintained at the same level, and it is just above phototherapy cutoff level, and it was not reducing, so we have given IVIG as it was immune hemolytic disease. And we DAT was done, and there was features of hemolysis in this case, and this was a clear-cut case of RHISO immunization. And this was the baby, bilirubin levels have gradually reduced, and this was the condition of the baby at discharge. Bind score was 0 at discharge, and neurological examination, baby was normal. This was course of case 2. So this was the condition of baby at admission. This was a video taken in emergency, so baby was not undressed. We can see that baby was lethargic. There was retrocolis. On stimulus, there was increase in tone, and there was shrill cry. So this baby had modified bind score of 9, and this baby, based on age and gestational age, cutoff for PT and 21, and 80 cutoff was 27 for this age as per AAP. So at admission it was 36, bilirubin was 36, which was way above exchange transfusion cutoff. So we have started intensive double surface phototherapy for this case, and baby was also having skin lesions, so in diaper area and retroauricular region. So we have started the baby on amoxicillin clavulanate, and we have planned DVT and double volume exchange transfusion was done for the same. And sepsis screen was negative, but blood culture later reported to be Staph aureus positive. So we have continued the baby on antibiotics, and we have discharged the baby after completion of antibiotics. So this was the condition post DVT and phototherapy of 1 to 2 days. So we can see that baby is still having poor feeding. Baby was being fed through OG tube. There was retrocolis, and baby was having stereotypic movements, and still irritable. Baby was still irritable, and this was at discharge. And gradually baby has improved, but still there was stereotypic movements, and there was kernicteric faces we can observe. There was anxious look, and also baby was having lid retraction suggestive of kernicteric faces. This might be having sequelae in the future. And case 3, this is also this is a late preterm baby at 36 weeks gestational age, and this baby when admitted, it was having bilirubin level of 22.39. Although it is below exchange transfusion cutoff, baby was deeply icteric, and also baby was having features of encephalopathy. So this baby was started on intensive double surface phototherapy and immediately planned for double volume exchange transfusion. And baby was having abdominal distension and vomiting, lethargy, so suspected to have sepsis, and we have started with the baby on antibiotics. Double volume exchange transfusion was done, and after this bilirubin levels have reduced, and in evaluation the mother and baby blood groups were O positive and A positive, but direct antiglobulin test was negative, and there were no features of hemolysis, so OA incompatibility was ruled out. And we have ruled out intestinal obstruction, and after that baby slowly improved, and blood cultures were reported negative. After 5 days we have stopped the antibiotics, and we were able to discharge the baby. I invite Dr. Rashid to discuss MRIs of these 2 cases.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, respected teachers and all my dear residents. Here in case 1, both of these babies have got plain MRI brain done in a 3 Tesla MRI scanner, And in case 1, we see the image on the left, this is an axial T1 weighted image, and the image on the right, this is a axial flare image. And on T1 weighted sequence, we see bilateral symmetrical T1 hyperintensities in globus pallidus. And in case of flare images, we see mild flare hyperintensity in bilateral global pallidi. And in case 2, the first image is a T1 weighted image. We see T1 hyperintensity in bilateral globus pallidus and also T1 hyperintensity in subthalamic nuclei. And the last sequence is a flare sequence, T2 flare sequence. And here we can see hyperintensity in bilateral globus pallidus. Based on these imaging findings and considering the clinical context of both of these babies, bilirubin-induced encephalopathy is a possibility. And what we saw and the imaging features we just saw, these are the classic imaging features in the case of acute bilirubin encephalopathy. We see T1 signal hyperintensity in globus pallidus, subthalamic nuclei, hippocampus, cerebellum, and we can also see subtle signal increase on T2 weighted images also. And neuroimaging findings, they need to be interpreted in the context of clinical history, neurological exam findings, and results of serum biomarkers. This is a case of ABE with typical imaging findings. We see T1 hyperintensities in bilateral globus pallidus. These are symmetrical T1 hyperintensities. And in cases with atypical imaging findings, we see patchy areas of T1 hyperintensities in bilateral globus pallidus. And in both of these cases, we can see subtle increase in the signal on T2 and flare images. And sometimes this could be confused with the normal myelination that happens in the posterior limb of the internal capsule because of the anatomical proximity of these two structures, the globus pallidus and also the posterior limb of the internal capsule. And as the disease progresses to chronicity, we see Candida icterus, that is bilateral symmetric increase in the T2 or flare signal in globus pallidus and thalamus. On the sequential MRI images, we can see increase in the T2 hyperintensity in each of these sequential images. We can clearly see the T2 hyperintensity increasing. I would like Dr. British to continue.
Thank you. A discharge of these three babies. Okay, in the first baby was discharged at day 14 after 10 days duration of stay, and M-bind score at admission was 7, and at discharge was 0, and baby's neurological examination at discharge was normal. But hearing screen came out to be refer, and so we have planned ENT follow-up on follow-up, and we have kept high risk. We have attached to high risk clinic for neurological assessment in follow-up, and pediatric neurology follow-up was arranged. And in case 2, baby was discharged after 11 days, and baby has improved, but there was sequelae, and hearing screen also came out to be refer in this case. We have advised follow-up in HRC clinic and pediatric neurology and ENT for hearing assessment, and in evaluation we have advised repeat G6PD levels, as the G6PD level in acute state was normal, and we didn't have any clear-cut diagnosis in this case, and whole exome sequencing sample was sent to rule out conjugation defects. And in case 3, this baby was discharged after 5 days, and neurological examination at discharge was normal, and this baby has passed hearing screen, and this baby was advised a neurological assessment on follow-up and pediatric neurology follow-up. MRI brain was advised at follow-up, and G6PD levels and evaluation for genetic causes was planned on follow-up. So this is the scheme which usually severe neonatal hyperbilirubinemia cases are evaluated. So first one is increased production. So with increased production, it can be hemolytic or non-hemolytic, and transport defects, hypoalbuminemia, it is associated with increased risk of neurological toxicity and decreased clearance. either conjugation defects or hepatic uptake, ligandin defects are those associated with increased risk, and increased enterohepatic circulation, either excessive weight loss or intestinal obstruction, or at increased risk of severe NNH. Coming to possible etiologies in our cases, first one is direct RH isoimmunization, although excessive weight loss is contributing in this case. And in case 2, there is no clear-cut diagnosis in this case. So we had to look for other causes. First is conjugation defect, as the parents being consanguineous couple and very high bilirubin level at presentation. So we have considered this and we have sent exome sequencing for this baby and report is awaited. And in G6PD deficiency, pre-exchange level was normal, but as this is very severe hyperbilirubinemia, we have planned later. So sepsis, although baby has blood culture positive status, but baby was not having overt features of sepsis. So this is considered as associated diagnosis, associated cause. And in case 3, there are associated features like prematurity, and sepsis was there, which is culture negative, but baby is being male baby. We wanted to rule out G6PD deficiency and sample was planned on file. And brief discussion, we saw 3 cases of NNH, all are severe part of spectrum with similar background but differing underlying etiologies. Severe neonatal hyperbilirubinemia remains a preventable cause of neurological impairment. Although however, when encountered, severe NNH is considered as one of the medical emergencies due to the risk of neurotoxicity. So these are the neurotoxicity risk factors as per AAP Clinical Practice Guidelines 2022. In case 1, we have seen that this positive DAT and isoimmune hemolytic disease is one risk factor, and in case 2, sepsis is associated risk factor, and in case 3, prematurity, gestation is less than 38 weeks along with sepsis is associated risk factors. Other risk factors are significant clinical instability and albumin less than 3 gram per deciliter. So this is a modified Bind score which is used to objectively evaluate a case of acute bilirubin encephalopathy. This also has prognostic importance, and this is 4 components in this. One is mental status, second is muscle tone, third is cry, and fourth is oculomotor movements. A score out of 12 points is given and graded as mild, moderate and severe. Anything above 7 is considered equal to or 7 is more than 7 is considered as severe. This is the one study describing prognostic importance of Bind score. This is published in Annals of Pediatric Neurology. So it was a follow-up study of more than 35 weeks neonates. Total 76 neonates were followed up. Of these, 33% infants, that is 25 neonates, infants had adverse outcomes in form of death or cerebral palsy or auditory dysfunction, and 66% of neonates, that is 51, led normal life. The key results are bilirubin albumin ratio more than 8.9 milligram per gram and Bind score more than or equal to 6 could predict adverse outcomes of acute bilirubin encephalopathy separately or together. And double volume exchange transfusion is the cornerstone of management of severe NNH. So blood volume to be exchanged is calculated by this formula, and PRBC and FFP are ordered at 2:1 ratio. We are thankful to our transfusion medicine department for their prompt response whenever we request for blood for double volume exchange transfusion. So this is the image performing DVET. So it is performed under strict aseptic precautions in pull-push technique. In all these 3 cases, we have noted one thing is geographic barrier and technical limitations. All 3 were outbound cases and residing at least 150 km away from IMS. There were 3 classical delays. First is care seeking. All 3 were discharged initially and later there was delay in care seeking, transport difficulty, and delay in initiating optimal management. So all were born in government hospitals, often lacking adequate resources for monitoring and intensive phototherapy. Adherence to standard pre-discharge algorithms, which is usually followed in most of established setups, including our setup, and close follow-up and timely referral mechanism. It is lacking in peripheries. And take-home messages: severe NNH is an amenable cause of common morbidity encountered in neonates in low and middle income countries. It can be associated with encephalopathy at very high bilirubin levels, but in preterms, even at lower levels. Acute encephalopathy may be reversible even at very high levels, hence prompt referral is indispensable. Sound parental counseling at discharge and follow-up mechanism is imperative for prevention. Effective channels of transport and referral remain among the most valuable management strategies, especially in predominantly hilly state like ours. Optimal facilities for intensive phototherapy is crucial to avoid very high bilirubin levels.